All right, strap in, everyone, because today we are diving into some seriously dense theoretical physics and philosophy.
Oh yeah, buckle up.
You guys sent us this paper, Unified Reality,
Mm-hmm.
and it claims to have, like, the ultimate answer to how the universe works.
The theory of everything.
Pretty bold. Yeah.
It is, it is. The paper claims to have found a unified theory of everything, a complete, understanding of reality.
So they're not just adding to existing theories, they're saying everyone else has got it wrong and they've, like, cracked the code?
Essentially, yeah. They're saying, look, we've got it all figured out.
Okay.
Everyone else, go home.
So
We've figured it out.
how are they trying to prove this?
So they claim to unify three fundamental aspects of reality.
Okay.
Space-time, matter-energy, and even consciousness, all in one framework.
Okay, let's break this down.
Yeah.
Most of us think of space-time as, like, those four dimensions,
Right.
3 for space and 1 for time. But this paper goes a step further.
They do. They introduce a fifth dimension,
Okay.
building upon theories like Kaluza-Klein and string theory,
So imagine, like,
a dimension beyond our normal perception.
a dimension beyond, right, our normal perception.
Yeah.
One that could hold the key to unifying gravity and quantum mechanics.
Okay.
It's like adding a new depth to our understanding of the universe.
So this extra dimension isn't just like some theoretical concept.
Right.
They're saying it has real implications for
Yeah.
how gravity works.
They argue that this fifth dimension allows them to explain the behavior of gravity at the quantum level,
That's mind-blowing.
something that has puzzled physicists for decades.
Yeah.
It's like finding the missing piece of a puzzle.
All right, we've got our minds wrapped around 5 dimensions,
Sort of, yeah.
at least, sort of.
At least we're trying.
What about matter and energy? How does that fit into their unified reality?
So they use what's called the thermoacoustic wave equation.
Okay.
Think of it like sound waves traveling through a hot gas.
Causing it to expand and contract.
All right.
Now imagine that same principle applied to the incredibly complex interactions of energy at the quantum level.
Okay, that analogy actually helps.
Yeah.
So they're using this equation to describe how energy behaves.
At both the tiny
About the tiny quantum scale.
quantum scale and the larger scale we experience every day.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. They suggest this equation bridges the gap between classical and quantum physics, potentially offering a more accurate model of how energy works in all its forms.
Now, this is where it gets really interesting and potentially controversial.
Yeah.
They also try to explain consciousness within this framework.
They do, and they do so in a very ambitious way,
Okay.
combining integrated information theory, the holographic principle, and quantum field theory.
Wow. So it's like,
It's like they're trying to create a grand symphony of consciousness using instruments from various scientific disciplines.
so they're not just saying that consciousness emerges from the brain. They're saying it's fundamental to the universe itself.
That's their claim.
Really?
Yeah, they suggest that everything we see,
Wow.
feel, and experience our entire conscious reality might be like a projection from information encoded on some distant boundary of the universe. So imagine like a giant cosmic hologram projecting our individual experiences.
Hold on. So they're suggesting that our brains are decoding a holographic reality.
Yeah.
That's a seriously wild concept.
It is.
Does that mean everything we perceive is just an illusion?
It's not necessarily about illusion, but about understanding consciousness as arising from a deeper level of reality, one that's interconnected with the fabric of the universe itself.
Okay.
It challenges our conventional understanding of where consciousness comes from and how it relates to the physical world.
Okay, my brain is officially doing backflips now.
Mine too. Yeah.
So they've got this model for space-time,
Right.
this equation for matter energy, and this wild concept of holographic consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
How do they tie it all together?
They introduce a central equation.
Okay.
But think of it as the grand unifying equation. They're mathematical proof of this interconnected reality.
So in E rho represents reality.
Yeah.
Is
Space-time.
space-time and matter energy combined, and then is consciousness.
Consciousness, exactly.
Okay.
So by saying reality equals the union of those three things, they're claiming all of these concepts are inseparably linked.
Like a cosmic three-legged stool.
I like that.
If you remove one leg, the whole thing collapses.
That's a great analogy. They're essentially saying these three aspects are fundamental to reality and cannot exist independently.
Okay.
And here's where it gets even more controversial. They claim to have definitive proof of this unified reality, not just a theory or a hypothesis.
Wait, they're saying case closed,
Yeah.
debate over,
Yeah.
no room for further research or exploration.
That's certainly the tone they take,
Okay.
which is where many scientists and philosophers might,
Raise an eyebrow.
raise an eyebrow, yeah.
Yeah, that kind of absolute certainty definitely makes me a little skeptical.
Yeah.
Especially when dealing with something as complex and mysterious as the universe.
A healthy dose of skepticism is always warranted, especially when someone claims to have all the answers, right? But even with their bold claims and potentially flawed approach, there are some interesting things to unpack here.
Right. So we've got this this grand theory of everything.
Yeah.
Potentially groundbreaking, potentially a dead end, but it's definitely making us think, right?
Definitely.
Now I'm curious,
Yeah.
what stands out to you as the most intriguing or surprising aspect of this framework?
What fascinates me is their attempt to bring consciousness into the equation. Literally,
Yeah.
for centuries, consciousness has been seen as something separate from the physical world, something that science couldn't quite grasp. And they're trying to bridge that gap to find a mathematical and theoretical framework that encompasses both the material and the experiential.
I have to admit, the idea that my consciousness is somehow connected to the fabric of the universe, like a thread in a cosmic tapestry, is pretty mind-blowing.
It is.
But I also have a lot of questions.
And that's a good place to start. Let's delve into those questions and see where they lead us.
All right, before we go down that rabbit hole, let's talk about something else they bring up.
Okay.
Quantum technologies. They claim that advancements in areas like high-dimensional encoding and photonic circuits support their unified framework.
They argue that these technologies are essentially tapping into the principles of their unified reality, providing evidence that their model has practical applications.
So they're saying that the fact that we're building these advanced quantum technologies
Right.
means that their theory must be correct.
Yeah, trying to...
It feels like a bit of a leap, doesn't it?
It's a connection they make, but it's important to remember that correlation doesn't equal causation. Right. These technologies could be advancing based on existing scientific principles, regardless of whether this particular unified theory is accurate.
It's like saying the invention of the airplane proves the existence of mythical flying creatures.
Exactly. Yeah.
Good point.
Good point.
It seems like they're trying to ride the wave of excitement around quantum technologies to add weight to their claims.
It could be.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've laid out the basics of their argument. 5 dimensions, a complex wave equation, holographic consciousness, and a dash of quantum tech for good measure.
A little bit of spice.
Now let's get critical.
Okay.
What are some of the strengths and weaknesses you see in this paper?
Well, on the one hand, their ambition is commendable.
Yeah.
They're tackling some of the biggest questions in physics, philosophy, and consciousness studies. And their mathematical framework, while complex, offers a potentially new way of looking at these concepts.
So points for effort and creativity, even if the execution is questionable.
Exactly. But on the other hand, their assertiveness and dismissal of other theories are problematic.
Yeah.
They present this framework as the ultimate truth, leaving little room for doubt or alternative perspectives. And that's where things get a bit tricky.
Yeah, the we've solved everything, everyone else is wrong attitude is definitely a red flag.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder if they're more focused on being right than on exploring the complexities of reality with an open mind.
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
Science thrives on skepticism, debate, and the constant testing of ideas. And that's what we'll do in the next part of our deep dive.
Right, so we've set the stage with their ambitious claims and highlighted some potential red flags. But before we move on to the critique, I want to bring it back to you, our listener. Does this concept of a unified reality resonate with you? Does it change how you think about your place in the universe? We'll be back in a moment to explore those questions and more. Okay, so we've laid out this paper's ambitious attempt to unify reality, including those eyebrow-raising claims of definitive proof. But let's dig into the critique now.
Yeah.
What are some of the major weaknesses you see, aside from that rather assertive tone?
The most glaring issue is the lack of empirical evidence. They've built this intricate theoretical framework, but they haven't really shown how it matches up with the real world.
So it's all concept, no concrete proof.
It's like designing a blueprint for a revolutionary new car, but never actually building it or testing it on the road.
So that seems like a pretty big hurdle to overcome, especially if they're like dismissing all other theories as incorrect.
Exactly. Exactly. They're essentially saying, take our word for it, the math works out,
Right.
therefore it must be true.
Okay.
But in science, mathematical elegance doesn't automatically translate to reality.
Right.
You need experimental data, observations, something to ground these abstract concepts in the physical world.
It's like that saying, in theory and practice are the same.
Right, right.
In practice, they're not.
Exactly.
They need to show how their theory explains existing phenomena or predicts new ones that we can actually observe.
Precisely. And there's another crucial element missing,
Okay.
peer review.
Oh, okay.
They haven't subjected their work to the scrutiny of other experts in the field.
Yeah.
It's like writing a novel and declaring it a masterpiece without letting any editors or other writers read it.
So it's possible there are like flaws in their logic or assumptions that they haven't even considered.
Absolutely.
Having other experts weigh in is crucial for like catching those blind spots
Right.
and ensuring the rigor of the work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Peer review is a cornerstone of the scientific process.
Right.
And it's how we refine and validate new ideas.
Yeah.
Without that external scrutiny, it's hard to take their claims at face value.
Okay, so we've got lack of evidence and no peer review.
Yeah.
Those are some serious strikes against this paper.
It's not looking good.
But before we get too deep into the negatives,
Yeah.
let's circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
The potential value of their mathematical approach. Can you expand on that a bit?
Even if their grand unified theory doesn't hold up under scrutiny, the way they've attempted to model consciousness mathematically is intriguing.
Okay.
It might open up new avenues for research, especially in fields like neuroscience and cognitive science.
So it's like they've stumbled upon a new tool,
Yeah.
a new way of thinking about the brain and consciousness, even if they haven't quite figured out how to use it properly yet.
Exactly. It's like they've invented a new type of telescope that could potentially reveal unseen aspects of the universe, but it needs further calibration and refinement before we can trust its observations.
I'm getting a potential but proceed with caution
Yeah.
vibe here.
Yeah.
It's exciting to think that their mathematical framework could lead to new insights about consciousness. But we need to be realistic about its limitations.
Absolutely. And that's where the real work begins, testing their hypotheses, gathering data, and seeing if their model can actually explain the complexities of consciousness.
Yeah.
It's a long road ahead, and their framework is just one possible starting point.
Okay. I'm seeing both the potential and the pitfalls here.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, we can't ignore the elephant in the room.
What's that?
Their claim about proving the existence of God through their equation.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty bold statement, to say the least.
It is. They point to something called the free will function and the observer term in their equations as evidence of divine influence.
Okay.
Essentially, they're arguing that the very structure of their mathematical model points towards the existence of a higher power.
Wait, so they're saying they found mathematical proof of free will in God?
Yeah, that's what they're claiming.
I feel like we've crossed over from theoretical physics into the realm of theology.
Oh, it's a bit of a leap, for sure.
And to be honest, I'm not sure math is the right tool for answering those kinds of questions.
Many physicists and philosophers would agree with you.
Yeah.
The concept of God, as it's generally understood, often falls outside the scope of what science can empirically test or prove.
Right.
It's more about faith, belief, and personal interpretation than about objective data and equations.
It seems like they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole here.
I think that's a fair assessment.
Math is great for describing the physical universe, but when you start talking about things like God and free will, you're entering a whole different realm of inquiry.
That's a key point to keep in mind. They're essentially imposing their own interpretation on the mathematical framework rather than letting the math speak for itself. It's important to separate their mathematical model from their theological claims.
So it's like they're saying, here's our fancy math, and by the way, it also proves our personal beliefs about the universe. But that's not really how science works, is it?
Not quite. Science is about testing hypotheses, gathering evidence, and revising theories based on what the data tells us.
Right.
It's not about using math to justify pre-existing beliefs.
Okay, we've unpacked their bold claims,
Hmm?
highlighted some major weaknesses,
Yeah.
and touched on their controversial assertions about divine intervention.
Yeah.
But before we move on, I want to bring it back to you, our listener. How do you feel about this whole proof of God thing? Does it make you question your own beliefs or worldview?
This is a deeply personal question, and there's no right or wrong answer. What's important is that we engage with these ideas thoughtfully and critically, understanding that our individual beliefs and interpretations play a role in how we view these concepts.
And remember, science and spirituality aren't necessarily at odds with each other.
Right.
They can coexist and even complement each other in our understanding of the world.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance.
Yeah.
Recognizing the limitations of both science and religion, and being open to different ways of knowing and experiencing reality.
Now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the potential implications of this unified reality concept, even if we set aside the more controversial claims. If this framework or something like it were to be proven, what do you think the most significant impact would be for humanity?
That's a fascinating question. Imagine a world where we understand the interconnectedness of everything, where consciousness is recognized as a fundamental force, and where the boundaries between the physical and the spiritual become blurred.
Yeah.
It could potentially revolutionize our understanding of ourselves, our place in the universe, and our relationship with each other.
It's almost overwhelming to think about the possibilities.
It is, yeah.
Would it change our approach to technology, our understanding of life and death, our ethical frameworks? It's a lot to wrap our heads around.
It is, but these are the kinds of questions that push us to think beyond the limits of our current understanding.
Right.
And to imagine a future shaped by a more holistic and interconnected view of reality.
Yeah.
And even if this particular framework turns out to be flawed, the journey of exploration itself can be incredibly valuable.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, from five dimensions to holographic consciousness to the controversial claims of proving God's existence. It's been a wild ride through the complexities of this unified reality paper.
It has. It has.
We'll be back in a moment to wrap up our deep dive and leave you with some final thoughts to ponder. Okay, we're back, and I don't know about you, but my head is still spinning a little from all this talk of unified realities and five dimensions and holographic consciousness.
Yeah, it's a lot to process, isn't it? But that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating.
Exactly. We get to explore the fringes of scientific and philosophical thought, challenge our assumptions, and maybe even glimpse a different way of understanding the universe.
And sometimes those glimpses, even if they turn out to be illusions, can spark new ideas and lead us down unexpected paths of inquiry.
Okay, so we've thoroughly dissected this unified reality paper, explored its strengths, highlighted its weaknesses, and pondered its potential implications.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up, I want to ask you something that's been on my mind this whole time.
Sure, go ahead.
This paper, even with, all its flaws and bold claims, seems to be trying to bridge a gap that's existed for centuries, the gap between science and spirituality. What are your thoughts on that?
It's an interesting observation, and I think you're right. There's been a tendency to see science and spirituality as separate, even opposing forces.
Right.
Science seeks to explain the world through observation and experimentation,
Right.
while spirituality often deals with questions of meaning, purpose, and the transcendent.
Right. It's the classic battle between reason and faith, logic and intuition. But this paper, in its own way, seems to be suggesting that maybe these two realms aren't so different after all.
Yeah, they're proposing that consciousness, something often associated with spirituality, could actually be a fundamental aspect of the physical universe, something that can be explored and understood through scientific inquiry.
So it's like they're saying science and spirituality are two sides of the same coin, two different lenses through which we view the same underlying reality. Instead of being at odds, they could potentially complement and enrich each other.
That's a compelling idea, isn't it? Imagine a world where science and spirituality work together, each informing and expanding the other's perspective. It could lead to a more holistic understanding of the universe and our place within it.
It's a beautiful thought, and one that I think resonates with a lot of people who are searching for a way to like reconcile their scientific understanding of the world with their spiritual beliefs and experiences.
And even if this particular framework doesn't provide all the answers, it's sparked a conversation that I think is crucial to have. How do we bridge the gap between the objective and the subjective, the material and the spiritual? How do we create a worldview that encompasses both the scientific and the sacred?
Those are big questions,
Hmm.
but they're questions worth asking, and maybe just maybe by exploring those questions with an open mind and a willingness to challenge our assumptions, we can move closer to a more unified understanding of ourselves and the universe.
Perhaps that's the true legacy of this unified reality paper. It's
Yeah.
it's not about whether they've definitively proven their claims, but about the questions they've raised, the conversations they've sparked, and the potential they've unveiled for a more integrated and holistic view of reality.
And who knows, maybe that's the key to solving some of the biggest challenges facing humanity, finding a way to like bridge divides, to see the interconnectedness of everything, and to work together towards a common future.
It's a hopeful vision and one that I think is worth striving for. Even if the path forward is uncertain, the journey of exploration itself can be transformative.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. We've delved into the depths of unified reality, explored its mind-bending concepts, and grappled with its controversial claims, but the exploration doesn't end here.
Keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of the universe. Who knows what amazing discoveries await you just beyond the horizon.
Until next time, keep exploring.